Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Devastator, watching the stars through the massive window. Space looked peaceful out here, but Jake knew better. He had been fighting wars for 30 years, and peace never lasted long. The Outer Rim Defense Fleet was on patrol near the edge of human space. 12 big warships moved through the darkness like metal sharks. Each ship carried enough weapons to destroy a small moon. The fleet had been built after years of fighting pirates and rebel colonies. Humans had learned to build ships that could win any fight. Jake was 52 years old and tired of war. But someone had to guard the borders. Someone had to make sure that whatever lived out there in the dark stayed away from Earth's colonies. "Admiral, we're getting something strange," said Commander Tony Garcia from his station. Tony was the best at understanding alien languages, though they had never found any real aliens before, just pirates using stolen technology and rebels who thought they were smarter than Earth. "What kind of strange?" Jake asked. He walked over to Tony's station. The younger man was frowning at his screens. "It's not human, sir. The signal is coming from deep space, about 6 hours away at full speed. The computer can't read it, but there's something about the pattern that looks like a distress call. Captain." Lisa Brooks looked up from her own station. She commanded the Devastator and was the smartest tactical officer Jake had ever worked with. "Could be a trap, Admiral. Pirates have used fake distress calls before." Jake nodded. Lisa was right to be careful, but something felt different about this signal. "Tony, can you clean it up? Figure out what they're trying to say." "Already working on it, sir. Give me 20 minutes. Jake waited. Around him, the bridge crew worked quietly. These were good people who had followed him through 3 major wars. They trusted his judgment, even when he wasn't sure about it himself. The minutes passed slowly. Finally, Tony looked up with wide eyes. "Admiral, you need to hear this." The bridge speakers crackled to life. The voice was strange, not quite human, but the desperation was clear, even through the translation software. "This is the science vessel Harmony's Light. We are dying. Our ship is broken. The Skarn have hurt us badly. We have 23 people left, including children. Please, if anyone can hear this, we need help. We are peaceful people. We never hurt anyone. Please help us." The bridge went silent. Jake felt his chest tighten. Children. Whatever these beings were, they had children with them, and they were dying. "Tony, where did this come from?" Jake asked. "The signal is weak, but I can track it. About 6 hours away. Like I said, Admiral, the language is completely alien. This isn't human technology or any known pirate code. This is real first contact." Dr. Amy Watson's voice came through the ship's communication system. She was down in the medical bay but had been listening to the bridge chatter. "Admiral, I've been analyzing the biological data they transmitted with the message. These beings are carbon-based, roughly our size. The medical readings show they're really dying. Life support failure, radiation poisoning, multiple injuries. This isn't fake." Jake closed his eyes for a moment. First contact with an alien species. It should have been exciting, but all he could think about were the children mentioned in the message. "Sir," Lisa said quietly, "we don't know anything about these aliens. They could be dangerous. They could be lying. This could be some kind of test. Or they could be exactly what they claim to be," Jake replied. "Peaceful scientists with children, dying in space while we debate whether to help them." He looked around the bridge. These people had followed him through hell more than once. They deserved to know what they were getting into. "Listen up, everyone. We're about to make a decision that could change everything. If we ignore this signal and keep going, we go home safe. We file a report and let someone else deal with it. But if we respond, we become part of something bigger than just patrolling our borders." Lieutenant Ben Clark, the young pilot who led their fighter squadrons, spoke up. "What if they're telling the truth, Admiral? What if there really are children dying out there?" Jake smiled. Ben was 26, and still believed the universe could be a good place. Jake envied him that. Chief Engineer Kate Davis. "How fast can we get there?" Jake asked. Kate's voice came through the speakers from the engine room. 6 hours at full speed, sir. All ships can make it without problems." Jake made his decision. "All ships. This is Admiral Morrison. We're changing course to investigate an alien distress call. This is not a drill. We may be making first contact with a non-human species. All departments, prepare for the unknown." He turned to Lisa, signaled the fleet. "Battle formation, but weapons powered down. If these aliens are friendly, I don't want to scare them. If they're not, ... Double quotes, he didn't need to finish. Lisa understood. "Tony, keep working on that translation. I want to know everything about these Catharians, and whoever hurt them." "The Skarn, sir? That's what they called their attackers, right? Find out what you can about them too." As the fleet changed course, Jake stared out at the stars again. Somewhere out there, children were dying. Maybe alien children, but children nonetheless. And if there was one thing Jake Morrison had learned in 30 years of war, it was that children should never pay the price for adult conflicts. The USS Devastator and her sister ships accelerated into the darkness, carrying Earth's most powerful war fleet toward humanity's first real contact with alien life. None of them knew that this single decision would change the entire galaxy forever. 6 hours later, the human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel. What they found made Jake Morrison's blood run cold. The alien ship hung in space, like a broken toy. It was beautiful, even damaged. The hull was white and curved, designed for exploration, not war. But now it was covered in burn marks and holes. Pieces of metal drifted around it, like metallic snow. "My God," whispered Dr. Amy Watson from the medical bay. She was watching through the ship's cameras. "Look what they did to it." But the real horror was the 3 ships circling the wreck like vultures. They were massive, twice the size of human warships. Their hulls were black and covered in spikes and weapon ports. They looked like something built by a nightmare. "Skarn vessels," Tony Garcia said, his voice tight with anger. "I'm picking up their communications. They're laughing." "What?" Jake asked. "They find this amusing, sir. They've been taking turns shooting at the alien ship. Not to destroy it, just to hurt the people inside. They're playing with them." On the main screen, one of the black ships fired a small burst of energy at the broken vessel. The white hull glowed red where it hit. Inside that ship, people were dying slowly, while their attackers enjoyed the show. Jake had seen evil before, but this was something new. This was cruelty for its own sake. "All ships, battle stations," he ordered. "Lisa, I want those Skarn ships disabled in the first attack. Don't give them time to hurt the aliens anymore." Captain Brooks smiled grimly. "Already working on it, Admiral. Targeting their weapons and engines." The human fleet spread out in attack formation. The Skarn ships were so busy torturing their victims that they didn't notice the approaching warships until it was too late. "Fire," Jake ordered. 12 human warships opened fire at once. The space around the Skarn vessels lit up with explosions. Humanity had spent decades perfecting the art of war, and it showed. The first volley destroyed the weapons on 2 Skarn ships and crippled their engines. The third Skarn vessel tried to turn toward the human fleet, but Lieutenant Ben Clark was already launching his fighters. The small, fast ships swarmed around, the alien warship like angry wasps, hitting weak points with surgical precision. "Unknown vessels, you dare attack the Skarn Empire." The voice that came through the speakers was deep and filled with rage. "We are the masters of this galaxy. You will submit or be destroyed." Jake keyed his own microphone. "This is Admiral Morrison of the Earth Defense Fleet. You have 30 seconds to surrender or be destroyed." The Skarn commander laughed. "Humans, we have never heard of your species. You must be new. we will enjoy breaking you. The remaining functional Skarn ship fired at the USS Devastator. The blast was powerful, but unfocused. Human shields absorbed it easily. Your turn is over, Jake said. Lisa, finish them. The Devastator's main guns fired once. The Skarn ship exploded in a ball of flame and metal. But the second Skarn vessel, its weapons destroyed but engines still working, suddenly accelerated toward the broken alien ship. They're going to ram it, Lisa shouted. They'd rather kill the survivors than let us save them. Not happening, growled Colonel Rick Turner. Admiral, my Marines are ready for boarding action. Do it, Jake ordered. Colonel Turner and 50 Marines launched from the Devastator in small assault craft. They reached the Skarn ship just as it was building up speed for its final attack. Cutting through the hull with plasma torches, the Marines fought their way inside. The Skarn were big, almost 8 feet tall, with gray skin and too many teeth. They fought with savage fury, but no real skill. The human Marines had trained for this kind of close combat for years. They moved through the ship's corridors like a deadly machine, taking down any Skarn who tried to stop them. Rick Turner reached the bridge just as the Skarn captain was about to ram the alien vessel. The two fighters met in brutal hand-to combat. The Skarn was bigger and stronger, but Rick was faster and smarter. When it was over, the Skarn ship was drifting powerless. Meanwhile, Chief Engineer Kate Davis led her own team to the broken alien ship. They cut through the damaged hull carefully, trying not to hurt anyone inside. I've got life signs, Kate reported. 17 beings scattered through the ship. Some are in really bad shape. Dr. Watson was already suiting up. Get me over there. These people need medical attention now. What they found inside the alien ship broke their hearts. The beings called Catherians were about human size, but thinner, with large eyes and pale blue skin. They moved gracefully even when injured. Most importantly, they looked at the humans with hope instead of fear. One of them, an older male, approached Dr. Watson carefully. Through Tony's translation device, he spoke. Are you here to help us? Please. The young ones are hurt badly. Amy. Watson looked at the alien and saw the same thing she saw in any parent worried about their children. We're here to help. All of you. She knelt beside a small Catherian child who couldn't have been more than 5 years old in human terms. The little girl looked up at her with huge, frightened eyes. What's her name? Amy asked the older alien. Thera, he replied. She is my granddaughter, the Skarn. They enjoy hurting the young ones most. Amy felt rage building in her chest, but she pushed it down. These people needed her to be a doctor, not a warrior. She's going to be okay, Amy told the grandfather. We're going to take care of all of you. Over the next few hours, the human fleet rescued 17 Catherian survivors. The aliens were amazed by human kindness. They had expected to die slowly while the Skarn played their cruel games. Why did you come? Asked the older Catherian, who introduced himself as Zefka. We are strangers to you. Jake Morrison looked at the alien scientist and gave the only answer that made sense to him, because you asked for help. As the human ships prepared to leave the battlefield, Jake stared at the wreckage of the Skarn vessels. These weren't the first aliens humanity had met. They were just the first ones who deserved to die, but he had a feeling they wouldn't be the last. 3 days later, the Catherian survivors were recovering in the medical bay of the USS Devastator. Dr. Amy Watson had worked around the clock to save them all. Their biology was different from humans, but not so different that human medicine couldn't help. The small child, Thera, had become everyone's favorite. She followed the human crew around with wide, curious eyes. Despite everything she had been through, she still found wonder in the world around her. But it was her grandfather, Zefka, who told them the truth about what they were really fighting. Admiral Jake Morrison sat in the conference room with his senior officers and the Catherian scientist. Tony Garcia's translation device made conversation possible, though Zefka was learning English quickly. The Skarn Empire controls most of this part of the galaxy, Zefka explained. His large eyes were sad as he spoke. They have been conquering worlds for over 200 years. My people, the Catharians, were one of the last free species. What happened to your homeworld? Captain Lisa Brooks asked. Kith Prima fell 6 months ago. The Skarn came with 1,000 ships. We had no military, no weapons. We believed that intelligence and peaceful words could solve any problem. Zef's voice became bitter. We were wrong. Jake leaned forward. How many of your people survived? Perhaps 10,000, scattered across the galaxy as slaves. The Skarn enjoy keeping intelligent species alive to work for them. They find our suffering amusing. Dr. Watson spoke up from the corner where she was checking on little Thera. How many species have they conquered? 47 that I know of, Zefka replied. Each one thought they could reason with the Skarn. Each one died or became slaves. The Skarn see themselves as the galaxy's natural rulers. All other life exists only to serve them or die for their entertainment. Commander Tony Garcia had been studying the captured Skarn technology. Their communications mentioned something called the Great Hunt. What is that? Zefka's face went pale. Every few years the Skarn gather all their young warriors for a hunting expedition. They choose a world with intelligent life and let their children practice war. It's how they teach the next generation to be killers. And you think they might choose human space for their next hunt? Jake asked. It's possible. The Skarn spread in all directions. They will find your worlds eventually, and when they do— Zefka didn't need to finish. Jake stood up and walked to the window. Outside, human warships moved in perfect formation. He had always been proud of humanity's military strength. But now he wondered if it would be enough. Tell me about their military, he said. How do they fight? With overwhelming force and cruelty, Zefka replied. Their ships are large and well-armed, but they rely on fear more than skill. Most species surrender when they see a Skarn fleet. Those that don't are usually too frightened to fight effectively. Colonel Rick Turner, who had led the boarding action, spoke up. Their soldiers weren't that impressive. Big and mean, but not particularly smart or well-trained. That's because they've never faced real resistance, Zefka said. Every species they've encountered either submitted immediately or was too weak to fight back effectively. The Skarn have forgotten how to fight a real war. Chief Engineer Kate Davis had been analyzing the captured Skarn ship. Their technology is impressive in some ways, but it's built for intimidation rather than efficiency. Their ships are huge, but most of that size is wasted space. Human ships are actually more advanced in many areas. Jake nodded. That matched what he had seen in the battle. The Skarn had big guns and thick armor, but their tactics were simple and their coordination was poor. What about their numbers? Lisa asked. Zephkhkh expression grew grim. Millions of ships, billions of soldiers. The Skarn Empire spans hundreds of star systems. Even if your ships are better, you cannot fight them all. The room fell silent. Jake could see the worry on his officers' faces. Humanity had never faced an enemy this large. But then little Thera spoke up in her broken English. Nice humans help us. Maybe nice humans help others too. Jake looked at the child and felt something harden in his chest. This little girl had seen her world destroyed and her people enslaved. She had been tortured by monsters who enjoyed causing pain, but she still believed that good people would help those who needed it. Zefka, Jake said, are there other species out there who might fight back if they had help? People who are still free or recently conquered? The Catharian scientist thought for a moment. Yes, the Zelhari resistance still fights on 3 worlds. The Mokari have hidden colonies in the asteroid fields. The Vorth maintain a small fleet in the outer systems. But they're all scattered and weak. The Skarn have made sure no one can unite against them. What if someone could unite them? Jake asked. What if someone showed them how to fight back effectively? Understanding dawned in Zefka's large eyes. You're talking about war? Real war, against the entire Skarn Empire. I'm talking about justice, Jake replied. How many more worlds will burn while we sit back and do nothing? How many more children like Thera will suffer because no one was strong enough to stop the monsters? Captain Brooks looked worried. Admiral, this isn't just about protecting human space anymore. You're talking about taking on the responsibility for the entire galaxy. Jake looked around the room at his officers. These were good people who had followed him through hell more than once. He couldn't ask them to do this without their support. I won't order anyone to do this, he said. But I'm going back to Earth to request authorization for a full military response. Not just to defend human space, but to end the Skarn Empire once and for all. Colonel Turner was the first to speak. I'm in, Admiral. Someone needs to teach these bastards what happens when you hurt children. The fleet will follow you, sir, Lisa said. You know that. Tony Garcia nodded. If we can unite the galaxy's survivors, we might actually have a chance. Dr. Watson picked up little Thera and held her close. These people deserve better than slavery or death. If we can give it to them, we should. Kate Davis grinned. Besides, someone needs to show these Skarn what human engineering can really do. Jake felt a weight settle on his shoulders, but also a strange sense of purpose. Humanity was about to become something it had never been before, the galaxy's protector. Then let's go home and prepare for war, he said. Real war, against real monsters. As the human fleet turned toward Earth, Jake looked out at the stars and made a promise. The Skarn Empire had ruled through fear and cruelty for 200 years. That was about to end. Earth's response to Admiral Morrison's report was swift and decisive. Within a week, every shipyard in human space was working at full capacity. The Galactic Liberation Fleet grew from 12 ships to over 300. Jake Morrison found himself promoted to Supreme Commander of all human military forces. The weight of that responsibility should have crushed him, but instead, he felt focused like never before. Humanity had a clear mission: end the Skarn Empire and free every enslaved. World. Captain Lisa Brooks now commanded an entire battle group of 60 ships. She spent her days developing new tactics with other human officers. The Skarn expected enemies to either surrender or fight in predictable ways. Lisa was determined to give them neither. The key is unpredictability, she explained to her captains. The Skarn have fought the same way for 200 years, because it always worked. We're going to show them something completely different. Commander Tony Garcia had been promoted to head of alien relations. His job was to make contact with every free species in the galaxy and coordinate resistance movements. He worked with Zefka to establish secret communication networks across Skarn space. We've made contact with 17 different resistance groups, Tony reported to Jake during their daily briefing. The Skarn never bothered to completely destroy communication systems on conquered worlds. They wanted their slaves to be able to call for help, knowing no help would come. Now we're using those same systems to organize rebellion. Dr. Amy Watson had been working with Catharian scientists to understand Skarn biology and technology. What they discovered was encouraging. The Skarn are physically strong, but not particularly intelligent, she reported. They've ruled through brute force for so long that they've stopped innovating. Most of their technology is centuries old. We can beat them. Little Thera had become an unofficial mascot for the human fleet. She had learned English quickly and spent her time drawing pictures of her homeworld. The human soldiers loved her, and she reminded them all of what they were fighting for. When will we go home? She asked Jake one day. They were standing in the observation deck, watching human ships prepare for war. Soon, Jake promised. We're going to take you home, Thera, all of you. The first strikes began 3 months after the rescue. Captain Brooks led hit-and-run attacks on Skarn supply lines. Human ships would appear out of nowhere, destroy their targets, and vanish before the enemy could respond. The Skarn had never faced this kind of warfare. They were used to overwhelming weaker enemies with massive fleets. They didn't know how to fight an enemy that refused to stand still and be destroyed. "Unknown ships, identify yourselves," demanded a Skarn commander during one attack. His supply convoy was burning around him. "This is Captain Brooks of the Earth Liberation Fleet," Lisa replied calmly. "Consider this a message from humanity. We're coming for you." The psychological effect was immediate. For the first time in their history, the Skarn felt hunted instead of being the hunters. Colonel Rick Turner had been given an even more important job. He was training resistance fighters from dozens of different species. Humans shared their military knowledge freely, teaching alien warriors how to fight effectively. "The Skarn expect you to be afraid," Rick told a group of Zelhari freedom fighters. "They expect you to run or beg for mercy. Don't give them what they expect. Hit them hard, hit them fast, and never let them recover." The results were dramatic. Slave revolts erupted across the Skarn Empire. Worlds that had been quiet for decades suddenly burst into flames of rebellion. The Skarn found themselves fighting on hundreds of fronts at once. Chief Engineer Kate Davis had been working with alien engineers to improve human technology. The collaboration produced advances that neither species could have achieved alone. The Catharian gravity manipulation technology combined with human weapons systems gives us ships that can fight at impossible angles, Kate explained to Jake. "The Skarn won't know what hit them, but it was Tony Garcia's intelligence network that provided the most important breakthrough." "Commander Morrison, I've got something big," Tony said, bursting into Jake's office. "We've located a major Skarn prison world. Over 1 million slaves from 50 different species. But here's the important part. It's lightly defended. The Skarn never thought anyone would be crazy enough to attack it." Jake studied the data. The prison world was called Torment in the Skarn language. It was where they sent slaves, who were too valuable to kill, but too dangerous to keep on regular worlds. Scientists, engineers, military officers from conquered species. People who could be valuable allies if freed. "How many ships guard it?" Jake asked. "Maybe 30 Skarn vessels. Nothing compared to what we can bring." Jake made his decision. "We hit it. Full force, maximum speed. We go in, free everyone we can, and get out before the Skarn can respond." The liberation of Torment was humanity's first major victory. 200 human and allied ships struck the prison world at dawn. The Skarn defenders were overwhelmed. In minutes, what the humans found on the planet's surface horrified them. Millions of beings from dozens of species, working in mines and factories under brutal conditions. Many were near death from overwork and malnutrition, but when they saw human soldiers breaking down the prison doors, something amazing happened. Species that had given up hope suddenly remembered what freedom felt like. Dr. Watson worked tirelessly to save as many as possible. "These people haven't had proper medical care in years," she told Jake, "but they're strong, stronger than the Skarn ever realized." Among the freed prisoners was a Mokari general named Krelvos. He had been captured during the fall of his homeworld 5 years earlier. "You're humans," he said when Jake visited him in the medical bay. "We heard rumors. The species that makes the Skarn afraid. We're just people who don't like bullies," Jake replied. Krelvos laughed, the first time he had laughed in 5 years. "Then you've come to the right galaxy. There are no bigger bullies than the Skarn." The prison world liberation sent shock waves through the Skarn Empire. For 200 years, they had been untouchable. Now, humans had walked into one of their most secure facilities and freed 1 million slaves. More importantly, those freed slaves became the core of a new rebellion. They knew Skarn tactics, Skarn weaknesses, and Skarn fears. They had been waiting for someone to show them how to fight. As news of the human victories spread, something unprecedented happened. Species across the galaxy began to unite for the first time in centuries. The Skarn Empire, which had seemed invincible, suddenly found itself fighting for survival. Jake stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching reports come in from across the galaxy. Rebellions were erupting everywhere. The Skarn military was being stretched thin, trying to respond to attacks on hundreds of worlds. Phase 1 is complete, he told his officers. We've shown the galaxy that the Skarn can be beaten. Now comes Phase 2. What's Phase 2, sir? Captain Brooks asked. Jake looked out at the stars, thinking of all the enslaved worlds still waiting for freedom. Thinking of little Thera, who still drew pictures of her lost homeworld every day. Phase 2 is we finish this. We don't just beat the Skarn Empire, we destroy it completely. Every slave freed, every tyrant destroyed, every world liberated. He turned to face his officers. These were the people who would help him reshape the galaxy. The Skarn thought they were apex predators. They're about to learn what happens when real predators come hunting. 1 year after the first rescue, the final battle was about to begin. Watching the Catharian homeworld of Kith Prima grow larger on the screen, the planet looked beautiful from space, with blue oceans and white clouds. But Jake knew what was hidden beneath that beauty. The Skarn had turned the entire world into a fortress, using millions of Catharian slaves as workers and human shields. Final fleet count, Admiral, reported Captain Lisa Brooks. She now commanded the largest battle fleet in human history. 800 human ships, 200 allied vessels from freed worlds, and 50,000 fighter craft. It was an impressive force, but they were facing something even larger. The Skarn had gathered over 1,000 warships around Kith Prima, commanded by war leader Velnoth himself. This was the entire remaining strength of the Skarn Empire, making their last stand at the world they had conquered first. Tony, any word from our friends on the surface? Jake asked. Commander Garcia smiled grimly. The resistance is ready. Every slave camp, every factory, every prison has been contacted. When we attack the fleet, they'll attack the guards. The Skarn won't know which way to turn. Dr. Amy Watson was ready too. Medical ships stood by to help freed slaves, and alien doctors from a dozen species worked alongside human medics. They had learned much about treating different alien species over the past year. But the most important person on the bridge was little Thera. She was 7 years old now, and she had insisted on being here when our world was freed. Jake had tried to talk her out of it, but she was as stubborn as any human child. Are you ready to go home? Jake asked her. Thera nodded seriously. Grandpa Zevka says the bad people hurt our world, but we're going to fix it, right? That's right, Jake promised. We're going to fix everything. The Skarn fleet was arranged in a defensive wall around the planet. Velnoth's flagship, a massive black ship covered in weapons, sat at the center like a spider in its web. Unknown vessels, this is war leader Velnoth of the Skarn Empire, came the transmission. You have caused enough trouble. Surrender now, and we will make your deaths quick. Jake keyed his own microphone. This is Supreme Commander Morrison of the Galactic Liberation Fleet. You have one chance to surrender. Release all slaves and withdraw from this system immediately. Velnoth's laughter filled the bridge speakers. Humans, you think you have won because you freed a few prison worlds. We are the Skarn. We have ruled this galaxy for 200 years. We will rule it for 200 more. Your time is over, Jake replied. All ships, attack formation. Let's finish this. What followed was the largest space battle in galactic history. Human ships struck with precision and coordination that the Skarn had never seen before. Captain Brooks had spent months planning the attack, using every trick humanity had learned about warfare. The human fleet split into dozens of smaller groups, attacking from every direction at once. The Skarn tried to respond, but their formations were designed for overwhelming single enemies, not fighting coordinated attacks from multiple directions. Lieutenant Ben Clark, now a full commander, led combined squadrons of human and alien fighters. They swept through the Skarn fleet like a swarm of angry insects, targeting weak points that the big ships couldn't defend. Their command coordination is breaking down, Lisa reported. Individual ships are starting to fight on their own instead of working together. But the real victory was happening on the planet's surface. As the space battle raged overhead, every slave camp on Kith Prima erupted in rebellion. The slaves had spent months preparing, guided by human tactics and armed with weapons smuggled in by the resistance. Colonel Rick Turner led a special assault team to the planet's surface, fighting their way through Skarn defensive positions. Their target was the main command center, where Skarn officers coordinated the planet's defenses. The fighting was brutal. The Skarn were bigger and stronger than humans, but they had never faced enemies who fought with such determination. Rick's team moved through the command center like a force of nature, destroying equipment and freeing prisoners. In space, the battle was turning in humanity's favor. Chief Engineer Kate Davis had designed new weapons that the Skarn couldn't counter. Human ships seemed to dance around the massive Skarn vessels, hitting them from impossible angles and vanishing before they could return fire. But Velnoth wasn't finished. His flagship broke away from the main battle and headed directly for the planet. "He's going to bombard the surface," Tony warned. "If he can't win, he'll try to kill as many slaves as possible before he dies." Jake didn't hesitate. "All ships, intercept that flagship. Don't let him reach bombardment range." The USS Devastator and her escorts raced to intercept Velnoth's ship. The massive Skarn vessel was 3 times the size of any human ship, bristling with weapons. But size wasn't everything. Captain Brooks coordinated the attack with deadly precision. Human ships struck the Skarn flagship from every side, overwhelming its defenses. Explosions rippled across its black hole as weapon systems and shield generators died. But Velnoth kept pushing toward the planet. Even crippled, his ship had enough firepower to kill millions of innocent people. That's when Colonel Turner made his move. While the space battle raged around them, his team had fought their way to the planet's main spaceport. Using captured Skarn shuttles, they launched themselves directly at Velnoth's flagship. "Turner to Morrison." Rick's voice crackled through the speakers. "Permission to board that ugly ship and end this personally." "Granted," Jake replied. "Show them what happens when humans get angry." Rick Turner and his Marines cut through the flagship's hull like it was made of paper. They fought their way through corridors filled with desperate Skarn soldiers, moving toward the bridge with unstoppable determination. The final confrontation was everything the war had been building toward. Rick Turner, representing humanity's refusal to accept injustice, faced war leader Velnoth, representing the Skarn. Empire's belief that might made right. The Skarn war leader was 8 feet tall and covered in scars from 2 centuries of conquest. Rick was a normal human, smaller and weaker by any physical measure, but he carried something Velnoth had never faced: the certainty that some things were worth dying for. The fight was brutal and brief. When it was over, Velnoth was dead, and the Skarn Empire died with him. As news of their leader's death spread, Skarn ships across the galaxy began surrendering. Without their war leader's iron will holding them together, the Empire collapsed like a house of cards. On Kithpri's surface, millions of slaves walked free for the first time in years. They looked up at the sky and saw human ships instead of Skarn vessels. For many, it was the first time they had seen hope in decades. Jake Morrison stood in the observation deck of his flagship, watching the liberation efforts begin. Dr. Watson was already on the planet's surface, treating freed slaves. Kate Davis was helping repair the damage the Skarn had done to the world's infrastructure. Little Thera pressed her face against the window, watching shuttles carry freed Catharians up from the surface. "Is it over?" she asked. "It's over," Jake confirmed. "The bad people are gone. Your world is free." Thera smiled, the first truly happy smile Jake had seen from her. "Can we fix the gardens?" Grandpa says. Catharians love gardens, but the bad people destroyed them all. We'll help you fix everything, Jake promised. That's what friends do. As he watched the celebration begin, Jake thought about how far they had all come. A year ago, humanity had been a small species focused on protecting their own borders. Now, they were the guardians of the galaxy, protectors of the innocent, and destroyers of tyrants. The Skarn Empire was finished, but Jake knew this was just the beginning. There would be other threats, other injustices to fight. But now the galaxy knew something it had forgotten during 200 years of Skarn rule. Sometimes, when innocent people cry for help, someone answers. And sometimes, that someone has the power to change everything. The age of the Skarn was over. The age of freedom had begun. And it all started with a simple distress call and a decision to help strangers in need.